Alright, let's talk about the box model. So here I have some HTML just with simple H1 and two paragraphs. Here, let's look at this H1. If I put a background color, let's say orange, how would this look? Looks like this. So heading, paragraph, they occupy the whole width, and they're called blocks. And the way that this works is interesting, it's important to understand. What if I put a border? I can also put a border, let's say 2 pixel solid red. I mean, it's going to be ugly, but let's just put it in. Okay, so notice how the border and the content is all very close to each other, right? Basically, there's no padding between the border and the content. Here's a way to visualize it using inspect element. I can right click on it. And if I look at this, notice that the content is 162 pixels and 37 pixels in height. There's no padding and the border is 2 pixels, right? All right. So here, what if I want to put some padding between the border and my content, heading 1. So here I can say put a padding for me. Let's say 10 pixels on the top and the bottom and 20 pixels on the left and the right. You would do something like this. Notice that it created some padding, created some space. Notice that there is more padding on the left side and the right side than on the top and the bottom because that's what I specified. You can also do counterclockwise or clockwise and say put 10 pixels on padding on the top, 20 on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 20 pixels on the left. You can do that. If it repeats for top and the bottom, if it's the same, you can also do that. That's the top and the bottom, and that would be for the left and the right. So that's padding. Okay, let's do something with the same thing with the paragraph. So what if I put a background color of yellow here? And let's also put a border. 1 pixel solid, let's do orange, just so that we can see it. Maybe 2 pixels, just so that we can see it a little bit better. Okay, notice that also the content is right next to the border. There is no padding. And if I want to add some padding on the top and the bottom, I can say put padding of 10 pixels on the top and the bottom, and maybe on the left side and the right side, maybe 5 pixels enough. If I reload it, notice that it put in some padding between the border and the content, right? You can see the content. Okay, I can also do this, click on this, and then it will tell me, okay, that's the content area. There's a padding, 10 pixels on the top and the bottom, and the 5 pixels on the left and right, and the border is 2 pixels. You will see this thing that's interesting. Okay, margin. And notice it also color codes it, right? The green shows the padding, and kind of this orange color here, that's over there, that's the margin. So by default, the browser by default put 16 pixels of margin on the top and the bottom. Margin basically means, hey, away from my border, I want some spacing. I don't want to be right next to another element. Put some space between me and another element's border by at least 16 pixels, for example, right? So it created that space, right? I can also see that this H1, when I highlight it, did you notice how the color here changed, right? And there is a margin here. There is a margin, about 21 pixels of margin on the top, 21 pixels of margin on the bottom too. So here I can change, for example, let's go back to P, and let's say I don't want 16 pixels, which is the default that Chrome decided to give, and who knows, another browser may give a different margin. Let's say 14 pixel, right? So here if I wanted to say, okay, put a margin, and you can also do this, margin top if you want, margin bottom. I'd like to just do one margin and say, okay, let's put maybe 15 pixels on the, no, let's make it a little bit more dramatic. Let's do 32 pixels on the top and the bottom, and I don't need any margin on the left and the right. So I save it, reload it. Notice that it added more spacing. And again, I can use inspect element. I can indeed see that, okay, it put 32 pixels of spacing between this element, this border, and that border, right? Isn't that cool? Okay, so spacing inside the border is called a padding. Spacing outside the border is called margin.